Today, I am thrilled to be here with a phenomenal teacher. Welcome, Marianne.
Well, thank you, Marci. It's great to be here with you.
So how does the ability to let go of old patterns and the ability to forgive play into aging well?
When I ran for president, it was a traumatic, brutal experience. At the end of it, I knew you can do the work and emerge from this ever more expansive, more loving, happier. And to do that, you're going to have to atone for your mistakes and you're going to have to forgive other people for theirs. If you don't forgive the past, it poisons the present.
You've been speaking about living miraculous life since 1983. What does this mean to you now?
I think that the universe, being a living expression of the mind of God, is a moment of love, leading to a moment of love, leading to a moment of love. We are trained by a thought system of this world to think in ways that are counter to the love of God.
How do you deal with the fear of actually moving in an adventure to the next chapter?
It's an illusion that that's safe. That's actually deadly. There's nothing safe about that zone, and that leads to
You aren't meant to struggle. You are meant to live in the miracle zone. I'm Marci Shimoff, a #1 New York Times best-selling author and a founder of Your Year of Miracles. And after decades of exploring the source of true happiness, I have found one thing, and that is when you align with the energy of miracles, life flows with joy and with grace. So welcome to Living in the Miracle Zone. And today I am thrilled because I'm thrilled to be here with a phenomenal teacher and speaker, and also a very, very dear friend of mine, and that is Marianne Williamson. So welcome, Marianne, to our podcast here.
Well, thank you, Marci. It's great to be here with you.
Well, I love any opportunity that I get to talk with you. And I'm excited because we're going to talk about your latest work, Midlife Awakening. But let me start by introducing you formally to people, and then I'll tell people a little bit about my own experience with you. So I'm sure that everybody here knows of Marianne Williamson because for more than 40 years, Marianne has been a leader of spiritually progressive circles. She's written 16 books, 4 of which have been #1 New York Times bestsellers. And I'm sure you have heard the quote from the mega bestseller, A Return to Love. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. That is considered an anthem for a generation of seekers, actually multiple generations of seekers. And Marianne's also written A Woman's Worth, The Law of Divine Compensation, Tears to Triumph, The Gift of Change, Everyday Grace, and The Mystic Jesus, The Mind of Love. And Marianne has taught millions of people. She's taught universal spiritual themes that are at the heart of all of the great religions of the world. And her latest book, as I mentioned, is called Midlife Awakening, and it's creating a miraculous next chapter. So I'm thrilled to get to dive into this. But I do want to just let everybody know a little bit about my own experience with you, Marianne, because it's very deep for me. I first heard Marianne speaking on a little cassette tape back in 1983 when I was living in Los Angeles and I was going to graduate school. I was getting an MBA at UCLA, and somebody handed me this cassette tape and said, "You've got to listen to this." And it was Marianne speaking. She was teaching on A Course in Miracles and other things. And I must have bought every single cassette tape that you had out at the time, Marianne. And I felt such an incredible resonance with you. Inside, I felt like I know this woman. I'm going to know her in this life. I've known her before. It was maybe a decade later that we got to meet. And you have been truly instrumental in my life, not only from getting me really one of your superpowers, certainly, is taking the deepest, most profound principles of life and making them understandable, accessible, usable. But what people don't know about you, perhaps, is another superpower you have. And that superpower you have is to be an exquisite friend.
Oh, that's so
You
sweet of you
have
to say.
always, always been there. If you hear that somebody is sick, you are the first person to call and say, "What can I do for you? Let's pray together." If you know that somebody's been through a really hard relationship breakup, you are there. You were there for me. Actually, it was Marianne who I was on a trip with her to Bali, on a journey with her to Bali, and she gathered our entire group, and we did a prayer together to bring in my prayer for my partner. And I met Sergio about 2 weeks later. So you are truly, truly there as a friend. And I think that just speaks so beautifully to the teachings that you represent, that you speak about, but how you live them embodied in this life. And I've been such a grateful recipient of that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Well, you have been that friend to me as well. So,
Hmm.
it's been wonderful, not only as professional colleagues, but as personal friends to go through the years with you. So thank you,
Mm.
Marcy. That's so
Yeah.
kind of you, particularly now when, when you're in the public eye and people have ideas of who you are that you don't necessarily think align with the truth. So
Yeah.
thank you. Thank
Well,
you.
I can tell you now, knowing Marianne for 30 years on a personal relationship with Marianne, that you have been nothing but absolutely generous, gracious, loving, kind, considerate, and profound with me.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
I should have had you make that video when I was running for president, by the way.
Happily. So this podcast, Marianne, is called Living in the Miracle Zone. And it is about how to live a miraculous life. And you've been speaking about living a miraculous life since I first heard you back in
Yes,
1983. I
indeed.
want to understand from you, what does this mean to you now, living a miraculous life?
Well, I think that the universe, being literally a living expression of the mind of God, is a moment of love, leading to a moment of love, leading to a moment of love, leading to a moment of love in an endless stream by which energy is naturally programmed to rise to the highest level, maximal level of possibility for joy and for peace for all living things. The problem is that we are trained by a thought system of this world to think in ways that are counter to the love of God. It's simply a mental training that dominates this world, a thought system based on fear. When our minds are aligned with God, that means that every moment our hearts are open, we bless before we blame. We withhold judgment before we rush to judge. We live in the present rather than the past or the future. Our minds are aligned with God in such a way that we are co creating with Him experiences of happiness that emerge from one thing being right, leading to another thing being right, leading to the next breakthrough, leading to the next reconciliation, leading to the next moment of love. But the thought system that dominates this world is very intense, and we are trained at such an early age. The Course in Miracles says that at a very early age, have been trained to think in a way where ultimately unnatural, non-loving thought feels natural, and loving thought feels unnatural. So the spiritual path is the unlearning of the thought system of fear that dominates this world, learning instead to think in a different way. And you come to understand and to see in your practical existence that every moment we make a choice. You make that choice consciously or you make it unconsciously. But it's a choice. Is my heart open to this moment? Am I available? Am I a space of love and possibility for those around me? Or am I constricted in fear, negativity, whatever it is? Because all thought creates form on some level, because we have free will. Wherever our minds are aligned, that's going to be our experience. Either we are co creating with God and experience inner peace and love and happiness, or we allow our minds to run counter and we fall into fear, anxiety, depression, etc. One is heaven and one is hell. And that's all that's going on in our lives.
So I love that description. I mean, it's so clear and simple. Just as I said, you have the ability to take what is profound and deep and make it very accessible. And so I'm curious why you decided to focus on midlife awakening, and why in why you wrote Midlife Awakening, and why is this a time, a stage? It's certainly. I know you talk about midlife as not an ending, but an opportunity for reinvention, and so many people here, including me, are what I call at this stage of midlife. And so why this, and how do we make this a more meaningful and miraculous time in our life?
Truth is simple, but life is hard. Life is complicated. So taking these simple principles and applying them to every aspect of our experience is what this is all about, whether it's relationships, whether it's money, whether it's health, whether it's politics, whether it's growing older, whatever it is. I heard a saying, a line from a man named, I can't even remember his name right now, but it was a writer who said, if you genuinely have something to say, there's someone out there who genuinely needs to hear it.
Mm.
And I've always, I don't know how you are when you write your books, but I know for me, if I'm not passionate, there's no way that anybody reading it will feel passionate. So I originally wrote a book when I turned 50 that was called The Age of Miracles. And quite simply, I was writing about the experience of that transition. Just like I had written A Woman's Worth when I turned 40. Every decade is different, but I think particularly in a woman's life. So that book was written when I turned 50. I'm 73 now. And I was
Amazing.
looking one day at the cover of the book and I thought, oh, that's so old fashioned. And I looked at the book itself and I thought, oh, a lot of these references are really old fashioned. And several years have gone by since I wrote that book. Wow, I've learned some things since then. I mean, that's how life is. You think you know so much, and then you live another decade until you didn't know as much as you thought you knew. And so I revised it, rewrote it, and so now it's called Midlife Awakening. And I think that the menopausal years, I think this whole idea of the entrance into chapter 3, and for some people they feel that at 40, for some people they feel it at 60. It's when you know, maybe not at 40, but in your 40s, some people certainly by their late 40s start to feel there's a new chapter, and it really is like a second puberty. And I think there's a lot of grief involved. I often say to younger women, I'll find myself saying, "You have something I don't have anymore, but I have something you don't have yet." But we do have to go through that grief. When you're young, you put on a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, you walk out of the house and you know you're hot and you know guys are going to notice. And then things change because nature is no longer invested in men noticing you, especially after menopause. Nature doesn't care if you ever, get laid again outside. You're on your own. But living in this culture, particularly, that can be particularly devastating when so much of what we think of as our identity is wrapped up in all that. Um, a lot of misogyny, that cultural undertow, she's over the hill. Um, there's a lot to work through there. And I find in my own life, I think we all find in ours, that when we do the work and we do process the grief, I think once you've let go of what is no longer yours, then you can embrace what is yours now. I think women in the public eye, you see the ones who make the transition so beautifully.
Hmm.
And then you see ones and you go, oh man, never be like that. But you can tell people are hanging on too long to one thing, and if you hang on too long to what was, you can't have what's possible now. Emerson said, "As I age, my beauty steals inward." So the
Hmm.
energy and the power and the glory and the womanliness, and I think a lot of this applies to men as well, that doesn't go away. It just moves through different channels and chakras, and so I find, and I think you know this, you're a writer. A writer is someone who says, "Well, this is going on in my head. Maybe it would be of value to someone else who's going through it as well."
Hmm. Well, I actually love getting older. I have loved it. I feel more and more myself. I feel freer to be myself. Uh, uh, it's the same self. I read a section in here where you talked about a conversation you were having with your father, and your father said, "I don't feel any different now than I did back then." And it was the exact same thing my mother used to say to me all the time. I'm the same person in my 80s, my mother used to say, than I was in my 20s. And so there's that element that's the ongoing you that you are, but then there's also the fact that you get to grow into who you get to become, who you really most want to be. And so talk to me a little bit about this whole youthitis. I know you talk about youthitis, and then also just how we can make best use of growing into the truer, deeper self that we are, and how your father, relative to your father's comment.
Well, I think we do come to realize that the spirit has no age.
Hmm.
In A Course in Miracles, it says, "Birth is not the beginning of life, but a continuation of life." Death is not the end of life, but a continuation of life. The problem, the bigger problem, is that the world doesn't necessarily see it that way. So you can be thinking, oh, this is cool. I'm ageless. I'm experiencing the essence of who I am, just dropping some of the non-essentials and ultimately unimportant things. But then you live in this world. That's where the gap is. That's
Mhm.
that gap between what we know spiritually and what the world reflects back to us. And so, for instance, you and I, as writers, are in careers and as teachers in a career where we're allowed to get older.
Mhm.
But there are some things in life, having children is an example, certain
Right.
kind of professional opportunities where the opportunity will not be coming around again.
Mhm.
When you're younger, it just seems you don't know this because you're not older. So other people can tell you, but you can't really appreciate it. Oh, I could have a baby next year. Oh, I could get married next year. Oh, I could do this or that next year. And as you grow older, it's part of the grief, part of the acceptance that certain opportunities will not. But then it throws you into a deeper understanding that in God, the universe is so infinitely malleable. God doesn't say, the universe, divine intelligence, whatever you want to call it, doesn't say, I'd love to give you an incredibly abundant, joyful life, but you're over 55. There's not much I can do. This is just a frontier, and it's ours to create. Nature, going back before the sexual and the voluptuousness, when we are younger, nature is invested in our being able to produce on a certain level. What's interesting to me, Marcy, is that even though the human race will not continue, obviously, unless there are not women capable of giving birth, but the human race will also not continue at this point if people of all ages don't produce some greater wisdom.
Mhm.
I think the older you know, the more you know certain things, and the younger you are, the more you know certain things. It's an intergenerational moment. But we have to consciously and proactively stand in that space of creation of an amazing chapter 3. Nature isn't propelling us forward in the same way. And I think that this is where we really have to be there for one another, to notice all the ways, like, for instance, exercise. When we're younger, it's a cool thing to do. You're older, it's imperative.
Mhm.
So you become far more careful with your life, whether it has to do with exercise, whether it has to do with food, a recognition. And I think there are a lot of women in the public eye who are demonstrating something very beautiful. I really look at how Helen Mirren is carrying that on. I look at how Meryl Streep. You see the women who are holding it in a queenly, regal fashion and doing something very beautiful with it. I have a friend, Valerie Von Sobel. I just met a woman in. I'll tell you an experience I had just in the last 2 weeks. Okay, this is interesting.
And I know Valerie. I actually went with you to Israel with
Yeah,
Valerie.
yeah. Well, I went a couple of weeks ago. I was in Brazil, and I was on a boat, and I was with some lovely, lovely people. A lot of the people were younger women. Every one of them seemed over 5'10", everyone thin, everyone dressed like eh, every day, every meal was a Vogue shoot. Now, I'm cool being around women but not all day, every day. So I noticed my mind started going there. My
Mhm.
mind started really feeling the difference and feeling like I was kind of old and dowdy compared to them. And I realized, I don't know how. I remember once many years ago, you and I were in a store. Do you remember? And I
I
made you buy
do.
a purse,
I do remember it very
right?
well.
But when we're young, you kinda know what to do, and when you're older, I don't know, like, that suit looks sexy when you're in your 40s, but it looks dowdy in your 60s, and how do you do it? And I was really feeling it one day. After my trip to Brazil, I went to Argentina, and the very first day I was in Argentina, a group of women came by to do a televised interview with me. All of them were young except one, and her name is Elena, and she's in Buenos Aires. She looked about my age. she was dressed, because even like Valerie, it's so incredible, but I can't put that on, right? I wouldn't know how to carry that. But Elena, while everybody else wanted to talk to me about A Course in Miracles, I was studying Marci, every little thing, the shirt she wore, the jacket, the cuff, the thing, oh, look at that bracelet she has. Oh, that's so interesting. The rings, look at that brooch she has. And I was mesmerized, and I knew that's how the universe operates. Everything you need is either right in front of you or on the way. And I knew she was like a jump start for me. It's like a battery charge. And she heard me talk about that on a podcast. And so then I saw her several times while I was there. And I thought, now that woman is my age. That woman is my age or even a little bit older. I don't know. She's in the same age range and she's got it going on. And I want to be like Elena. So I think the energy of her now, on one hand, there's an old saying about clothes that I read, clothes are nothing, but they're an important nothing.
Mm.
I'm not talking about clothes because they ultimately matter. I'm talking about the energy that we have to decide whether or not. Elena was not holding back. And then I remember after looking at this outfit, I saw the silver coat that she had. And I thought, "Oh my God, you can wear that at our age without looking pathetic?" So I just thought it was such an example of that trip. First Brazil, no, you're not those girls anymore. But that doesn't mean, and by the way, they were lovely people. This is nothing negative about, they were lovely. And I felt great respect. There was nothing negative about that. It was in my head of feeling that that shift. And then the fact that I met her right after.
Mm.
And of course, Latin women sort of have it going
Yeah,
on
the
anyway, so she
flair.
knew how to carry it. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And
So I think that there are elements in every single issue involving growing older where you have to decide: are you going to go on a decline or on an incline?
and there are phenomenal people out there that we can look at these days and go, "Look at them." I mean, Jane Goodall. You look at what
That's
Jane
right.
Goodall did,
Yeah.
just up till the time she passed away. I just watched her, last interview.
You know, it's interesting about Jane Goodall. I don't even know if you're old enough to know this, because I know I'm older than you. When
Not
she was
much.
younger, oh, well, whatever. Then you remember when we were younger, she was gorgeous.
Mm,
She was a beautiful younger woman.
mhm,
And at this point, we're all dealing with that, the arc of age. And
mhm. Well, and what I've
we go
seen
through it, whether we admit that we go through it or not, we're going through it.
and what I've seen, Marianne, and I'm sure you see this and you talk about it in Midlife Awakening is it's also what are the old patterns that we're holding on to? People that don't let go of old habits, people that don't let go of old grudges, people that have a hard time forgiving. The older you get, the more of that you have the potential of having the old grudges. So how does the ability to let go of old patterns and the ability to forgive play into aging well or to moving into
Well, I
this
think
chapter well?
it's actually the essence of aging well, and it's a lot easier said than done. When I ran for president in 2024, it was a traumatic,
Mhm.
brutal experience. And at the end of it, I knew, okay, Ms. Williamson, you have two choices. Number one, if you don't process this, you will age as an angry, bitter, old woman. And people will go, it's too bad about her. Or you can do the work and emerge from this greater, ever more expansive, more loving, happier. And to do that, you're going to have to atone for your mistakes and you're going to have to forgive other people for theirs. And it's going to be painful in certain ways because you're going to have to look at certain things and you're going to have to, I've known for a very long time that my life works well when I practice what I preach, or at least make a damn good effort at it. And forgiving the past, if you don't forgive the past, it poisons the present. And in the present, we are programming the future. So the Course in Miracles says you are lugging shadow figures from your past. They did this to me, and they did that to me, and they did this to me, and they did that to what great, you know? there's just then you're going to live a life of hell for however many decades you might have left. And the Course in Miracles says you pay a very high price for not paying 100% taking 100% responsibility for your life experience. If you don't take the responsibility, the price you pay was that you won't be able to change it. So even if they did this to you, what part did you play in conspiring or not, or keeping your flanks open, or not meeting it? What was your part? What was your part? So atoning. Uh, I don't know of anyone who gets to a certain point in life and doesn't have some remorse and some regret. I mean, it's easy. My first book, Return to Love, in the chapter on forgiveness, I find this so astonishing reading it now. My chapter on forgiveness in a book that came out in 1992, this is what it was. I don't know if you remember. Oh, listen, I really know about forgiveness. I know how hard it can be to forgive. Let me tell you what happened to me. There was this guy, and we had a date after the Olympics, and he stood me up. That was how tough. That was how much. And by the way, Marci, I don't remember anyone at the time pointing out, the girlfriend, you haven't been through, well,
Right.
that's what has happened in the years since. I had no clue. So in a way, the power of that book is that I hadn't.
Mhm.
But the power as we get older is that we're not choosing love and happiness because we don't know better. We're choosing love and happiness because we do know better.
Mhm.
And we know what can go wrong, and we become athletes, spiritual athletes at getting it right. So it's not always easy, but the rewards, as you well know, are astonishing.
So I want to know, Marianne, how you were able, what best helps you to really move into that space of forgiveness?
People would say to me, would you like to come to my house in Hawaii, or would you like to? And I knew there's nothing, you're gonna have to just sit on your couch. There's nothing, it's all inside your head. I
Mhm.
had to cry a lot. I had to scream into a pillow a lot. I had uh 2, 3, 4 people around me who were really there for it and realized the level of the trauma I had been through. And I don't use that word lightly. I think it's way overused today, and so I sort of stay away from it. But it was. I don't think anyone can even imagine you wake up every single morning, um, and there's someone saying the most hideous things about you and drawing a
Hideous and
picture of you.
untrue. Hideous and
Oh,
untrue, which makes it so hard.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and once something's in the air on the internet or in public or written in magazines or whatever, you can't fight your doppelganger. You
Mhm.
can't. And even though I knew where this came from or whatever, and I also feel that I did not. I feel every time something like that was written, I wish I had gotten on a video and spoken to it. I wish I had called people like you and said, "Would you make a video about how I'm an okay person?"
Which I would have so happily done.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
anytime I have the
yeah,
opportunity, yeah.
yeah. So I had to go through all, and it's in a way. I think of myself as I'm at about 90%, 91%, 92. I still have some chip on my shoulder. I still have some. It's embarrassing to and humiliating, and to feel that people have such ideas or whatever. So uh you have to move through it. You can't go around it. You can't go above it. You have to be honest with yourself. Now, one of the things I talk about a lot, you have to process. But there's a way in which, if you're not careful, processing your feelings becomes indulging your feelings or spewing your feelings. I have one very close friend named Susan, and Susan was with me a lot on the campaign.
I remember Susan.
And she was very aware of certain the campaign was sabotaged from the inside, and she saw that and she knew that. By the way, I had been warned by other women, but the point is, she knew, okay? So I think the art of friendship at a moment like that is you feel, um, compassion for someone's pain, but you will not enroll with them in the story. So she was as upset as I was by the behavior of this one particular person. And I remember the day I said to her, Susan, it doesn't serve me for you to repeat that at this point.
Mhm.
I have processed. It's that 3 days between the crucifixion and the resurrection, the 40 years between the, Israelites in slavery versus entrance into the promised land. It's when you're alchemizing that shift from the crucifixion to the resurrection, the human experience, taking it all in, atoning for your mistakes, forgiving others for theirs. It's an alchemical process. And it's interesting in the story of Christ because when the women came to get the body, 3 days later, they were told by the angels, "He is not here, he is risen," which means who you were before this happened, you're not even the same person once you've alchemized this. But I remember saying to her, "We don't need to replay that story anymore. I needed you to play it with me. I needed to analyze it, but there's a certain point and you can feel it, and other people can feel it too." People can feel when you're working and you deserve. I remember, you might remember it was a situation with some people and I felt at this moment, you know, at this moment, can I get, but then there's another moment when it's time. And she heard that. There's no further now. In fact, there's one person, I was thinking about him yesterday and today. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. You just got to alchemize it. You got to alchemize it. And it does take time.
And I so want to just really acknowledge and honor that you really do the work and that you are vulnerable and authentic, sharing what your experience has been through this. I think that is so, I know it's very touching to me and inspiring to me. It's like Marianne's out there, she's doing that work. I can be doing this work too, you know? And I didn't go through that kind of a situation with the presidential run and all of that. So I think that I really honor that you're taking responsibility for your life. It's what I teach in your year of miracles. There's 5 foundations for living in the miracle zone, and one of them is taking full responsibility for your life.
You have to.
And yeah.
It's the only, like I said, that line in the chorus, the price you pay for not doing that is it will be an endless loop. It
Mhm.
will be an endless loop. And as we age, particularly, it will show in your aura, it will show in your body, it will show in your, and a woman who has broken through in chapter 3 is a very glorious thing. And a woman or man who hasn't, it's not where we wanna be, but
Yeah.
I think that's really the point of chapter 3 is that we have to take, and what I hope the book helps people with, is that we have to proactively choose, "Oh, this
Mhm.
is gonna be an amazing chapter." And
Mhm.
you find a lot of people, I'm sure you see this too, there are people who the conversation they have around age isn't helpful, like,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
other people.
And so the last thing I really want to ask you about this is there are people, I think many people, as they age, they just get stuck in the safe zone. I'm just going to live it safe. I'm going to be comfortable, but there's a flatness. There's not an openness to the next adventure that you speak of, and they move into fear. I'm afraid of getting out of this same little rut that I'm in, but there's not life there. So, what do you say to people about how do you deal with the fear of actually moving in an adventure to the next chapter?
Well, the truth of the matter, of course, is that it's an illusion that that's safe.
Right.
That's
Right.
actually deadly, and
Yes.
it's giving your subconscious, and the world around you the message that we're shutting down, because energy is always on the move. It's either going up or it's going down. So there's nothing safe about that zone, and that leads to realizing in later years, I forgot to I never went to Paris. I never did this, I never did that. I was, quote, unquote, "playing it safe." Um, Joy, happiness comes from living in the adventure, and there's always a little bit of a risk, although the real risk is in not opening up to what life might have in any given moment. So playing it safe is a thought form that comes from people that don't believe it's a safe universe. But once you realize that no, what's unsafe is you playing this alone, you being a little boat on a huge ocean. That's not safe. What's safe is knowing you are the ocean. And this ocean is who you are and you're part of it. And it's God's love. And all it is everything that every moment is replete with opportunity. How are you playing this moment? And then if there is something which on a mortal material plane is not safe, you'll know, like don't turn the corner or no, don't go out with that person or whatever it is, you'll know that. But your openness to life, I mean, I tell you, I just had I was on this trip and having gone through so much, this was my first time sort of really out. And I was a week in LA and then I was a week in Brazil and then I was a week in Argentina. And it was a fabulous trip. And LA was great. It was very sweet, reconnecting with some people. Brazil was great. Argentina was great. And I was thinking when I came back, I was thinking, oh, that's because I hadn't even thought about the trip much before I went on it. I was busy. It's like, I'll get on the plane. And I was thinking when I got back about how great it was. And then I thought, it was great because you were open.
Mm. Yeah.
There's no such thing as that trip's gonna be great. No, it's who you're gonna be showing up in any situation. If you show up when you meet people, if you show up to do your best professionally. And I don't know how you felt, Marcy, but I realize now, and it's so like when my career began to get when Oprah opened up that world for me, I had this well, what you said, I'm gonna protect myself. I felt it was too dangerous and the people and I really sort of played life wrong.
Mm.
And I think that there are some women, and this might be more true of me than you. I don't know. I have a Capricorn moon. If I'm just sitting here neutral, some people think like, what's wrong? Like I'm
Mm.
angry. I'm not. I'm just sitting here. But so I really learned the hard if you're not letting people know, then people can project all kinds of stuff. They don't
Yeah.
know that it's because you're scared. They don't know that it's because you're shy. They don't know any of that. They just assume.
Right. Right.
So I
It,
had to learn that.
it's a great. I had a really interesting experience about a month ago. I went to my 50-year high school reunion,
Wow.
and it was awesome. And in high school, I met a friend there, Lizzie, um, and I said to her, she was one of the cool girls, and I was not. I did not. I was cool, but I wasn't in the coolest crowd. And I said, Lizzie, I wasn't cool enough to go to your parties. And she said, Marcy, you could have come to the parties. You just didn't feel like you could. And when people ask me how my reunion was, I had the best time. I had a better time at that reunion by far than I ever had in high school. I loved those people. And it was because I went in open. I was happy, I was loving, and I got it. And it is who you are, how you show up that makes the difference.
In any moment. And I think her saying that to you
Yeah.
was really important.
Yeah. It really
And
was.
so I think at a certain point in life, you look back at decades when I didn't show up for the party, and it wasn't because no one invited me. It was because I was, once again, fear, but love casts out fear. And sometimes all it is a moment of emotional availability and smiling. And it can be sad as we get older to realize that we missed out on certain things. But I think the important thing is to know the universe. The Course in Miracles says that in any moment that you did not show up for love, means you did not show up for miracles, because the miracle zone, what you call it, right? Miracles occur naturally as expressions of love. But the Course in Miracles says that in any given moment when you didn't show up for the miracle that could have happened, the Holy Spirit holds that miracle in trust for you until you are ready to receive it. So as soon as you're ready to learn the lesson and show up now, it's coming back. Won't be the same person, won't be the same place, won't be the same material opportunities, but the universe will figure out how to make it just as great.
That is such great news. That is such
Yeah,
great news.
really.
It's up
That's
to
what's
us to
called the good
open it up.
news.
That's right. Good news. So I've loved this conversation and I love this book. I really
Thank
encourage
you.
everybody, not even people in midlife, if you're not quite there yet, read it. And
Thank
so
you.
Midlife Awakening, Creating a Miraculous Next Chapter, I know you can get it anywhere Amazon, anywhere. But you can, to learn out more about Marianne and all of the things that she's offering, the courses. I know you're doing a course in a few weeks. You've got all kinds of programs. Go to Marianne.com. And that's where you can find this book. That's where you can find everything Marianne's up to. And so, Marianne, what are you excited about? I know your grandchildren. You have
Yeah, I was going to say.
beautiful
I was going to
granddaughters.
say, yes. And I think that's another thing, Marci, that in this book, I think some of the remorse, some of the regret. I don't know anybody who has grown children and thinks, I did it so perfectly. So there's a real chance that a lot of us feel to be a grandparent that in some ways, I don't know, it just, with grandparenting, you feel a second chance at certain things. You know, when you're, and all the things I said about my father, oh, he wasn't that emotionally available to me when I was younger. And then I realized that I was on the same timeline in my career he was. And I'm not the only one. I know many people. So I'm excited about I'm excited about little dresses about this big.
Oh,
Do I get the blue one or the pink one? And of course, you know, the things that matter to me always matter to me. My own work spiritually, and I'm excited about the possibilities for renewal and regeneration and repair, not only in my own life but in the world. And I hope in whatever years I have left to be part of the change that we all, I think, so desperately want.
well, Marianne, you have been a stand for that change for 40
Thank you.
years, for as long
Thank
as I've
you.
known you. You have inspired millions of people, and truly one of the greatest inspirations in my life. I'm so,
Thank
so
you.
grateful for you,
And
Marianne.
right back at you, right back at you. Our friendship means so much to me, and we should take another trip together sometime. You and Sergio, come
We
see
will.
me over with my grandkids. That would be fun.
I would love to do that. I would love to do that. And
What? Put that on your calendar. Talk
I
to him
will.
about that. Yeah.
Okay. I'll get a date there. And
Okay.
I also want to encourage everybody to sign up for your Substack. Marianne, you
Thank
put out
you.
fantastic.
Thank you,
I read,
Marci.
I listen all the time. So it's
Thank
your
you. Means
Substack is
so much to me.
mariannewilliamson.substack.com. But
Thank you.
please, this is a way to see more and more of Marianne. And so before I say my closing remarks, Marianne, is there anything you would like to say in closing to everyone?
You know, I do. One thing. When I remember, like, I remember the 1970s, and I remember when we were first going in that sort of chapter of feminism. And in that, sisterhood was so emphasized. And I think, you know, Gloria Steinem once told me that the key to going out there publicly is having a woman at your side. I think that not only is it an important moment for women to speak our truth, but especially having experienced myself how much institutional resistance there is to doing that. I think all of us can afford to deepen our sense of responsibility to be there at the side of other women, because it's what we all were taught in the 70s. None of us are going to get there unless all of us get there. And you certainly were here for me today. So thank you, thank you, thank you. It's
Well,
great to be
thank
with you.
thank you, Marianne. You've been here for me for so long. And I also really want to thank everybody who's here joining us today, because even though we don't see you, we can feel you. And
We
you
can.
are there. You are all here in this conversation. You know, if you're drawn to this conversation, it wasn't by accident. Something in you is ready to live more fully in the miracle zone. So I hope that you are feeling inspired. I hope that you're feeling more aligned with the energy of miracles. And of course, if this episode has touched you, please share it with someone you love. And also, please remember that you can download our free gift to you, Manifest a Life of Miracles, 4 Steps to Living in the Miracle Zone. You can get that at themiraclezonebook.com. And remember, miracles, they aren't reserved for the lucky few. As Marianne said, they are meant for you. They are waiting there for you. So let's all open up more and more. And I'm sending you so much love. Until next time.
Love you, Marci. Thank you.
Love you.